Today, we're getting the insights from a video game music composer, Stephen Cromwell from Maryland. Stephen, thanks for joining me today.
All right, thank you.
What are you working on right now?
Currently, I'm working on a album for Unity. Unity game dev. It's going to be a album for game devs that are just trying to get music for their game. So it's going to be like a game music collection.
So a pack that you're putting on the marketplace.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Nice. What kind of style is that going to be?
I'm leaning towards like JRPG, fantasy stuff.
Okay, is it mostly orchestral kind of stuff?
Yeah, orchestral.
Nice. So this is something you do part-time?
Yeah, pretty much part time. I would love to do full time, but just building up my marketplace so that I can get a decent income on the side. That's pretty much what I've been trying to do.
Are you looking at any other marketplaces like Itch or Fab or those?
Actually, yes. So maybe it might just be like a global upload to Itch, places like Itch, Unity, Bandcamp, even. So yeah, that's pretty much my plan.
Do you have any other packs out already?
Um, Not really. Like more, it's more so of like this collections I did for game jams. That's out right now, or just out. Like I just released a album, orchestral album, like earlier this year.
But that
Um,
one's not on the marketplace?
no, that's not on the marketplace.
Is that just personal music or is that intended to be game music?
Personal.
Have you done any? You said you've done some game jams, so you've actually done some game specific music before too.
Yes.
Have you done any paid work in that regard?
Yes. I've done. There's a couple paid opportunities. Like one of my first gigs was I got from OC Remix like like a few years ago now. Some person wanted me to write for a Castlevania Metrovania game, and yeah, we discussed things, and yeah, that was my first gig.
Did you do the whole game?
Actually, no, there was another composer. He had to leave, so I had to fill in
I
and
see.
provide music. Yeah.
How did you get in touch with that developer?
Through the OC Remix forums.
I
So
see.
yeah, there was like a forum, a section called like work. I think it was just jobs and stuff. Um, I was just scrolling there and I saw something. Uh, it was a post about I need music for a Metrovania. I just decided, oh, let me toss my hat in the ring, and they actually didn't respond like suddenly, but it was like it was like a few months down the line. I honestly forgot about it until they contacted me. I was like, oh, it was that opportunity, that job. It was cool.
Is there any other strategies you use to find work?
I tend to hover around Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it. Um, I usually like try to make connections with people and like from game jams and just build up relationships. So there's like a potential for paid work in the end. Those don't always happen, but it's always good to do. I feel.
Do you have any strategies on posting and promoting yourself, or are you just kind of reaching out to people cold, or how are you doing that?
I tend to just post my most recent work. Like usually when I finish a track, I just post it on Twitter. Well, like I would say about a good 90% of the tracks that I post on Twitter are all of my like tracks I just finished. So yeah, I do that, or yeah, I just reach out to people um to see if they need a composer for a specific job that they have or a game. or just work of art.
How'd you first get into music?
Um, excuse me. Um, I guess it was from I guess you could say it was more from the like PS2 games. Um, and like the music from like the Sega Genesis was one that was like really influential to me. Um, so I used to always listen to like the soundtrack of like Sonic 2 and like a game called Rocket Knight Adventures and stuff. And it was just really good stuff. I used to always play. We had like a Ranger keyboard, like a Yamaha or Casio. It was a Casio, and I used to always just imitate what was being played on the soundtrack. And I also played in actually no, that was before that. So like yeah, I used to always do that. I was always just play game soundtracks on the like the sound test. And later on, I got into band at elementary school, and I didn't really like it too much because it was like we were playing stuff that was kind of like boring, I guess. And then like later on, uh, in middle school, like I was told by my middle school band director that like later on like people there are like bands that play like game music, like Mario Bros and stuff like that. I was just like, wow, like that's real cool stuff. So I just decided to keep going with it. We played a lot of cool things. I could play the Pokemon theme once and stuff. So I saw like a whole wide world of things you could do with like game music. But like being a composer wasn't something I really thought of though until like I guess like I think like junior year of high school, where I knew that like it was possible. Um, and then I got a studio. I got a program called Anvil Studio. Um, it was a real. It wasn't very good. It was like a MIDI program. I could use general MIDI to compose, but I wrote a lot of stuff with it, and it was real fun. Yeah, I learned a lot. That was like my first foray into composing stuff. It wasn't really for games. It was more for myself and just learning things. Um, and then I got LMMS. I don't know if you're familiar with like the Linux multimedia studio. Yeah, like that was like my first like journey with like a DAW, like a fully fledged DAW. I mean, it wasn't the best, but it was fun to work with. Then what happened after that? I guess before all that, I got Ableton because a family member got a MIDI keyboard with Ableton. Of course, I know what I was doing because Ableton's like extremely complex, even for like a 14-year-old. I was just like pressing things. Um, yeah, and then what was it? Like I guess like a few years after that, it wasn't until like 2018. Um, I decided I wanted to do music, so I transferred to university, and I got Studio One, and I learned about Contact and the sample library industry, and I learned that pretty much that's how you make like modern stuff, and that's pretty much like I just learned all that, and this I'm pretty much leads to where I am now.
So quite a bit of self-teaching and learning by ear.
Yeah, like I went to, of course, like I was, it was like a lot of self teaching in the beginning, but like I went to university for music composition. Like I entered as a percussionist because I was what I played for like 8 years, I guess before that. So yeah, so I learned a lot from the university, and it was a lot of self teaching in the beginning.
Did you find the university education worth it and valuable?
Um, yeah, I think it was because like my composition professor gave me room to just experiment and like just do new things. Because yeah, I was definitely doing things like I was influenced by other classmates, other colleagues about what they were doing, and I decided to give it a try and just write, atonal stuff, things I wasn't really comfortable doing. Like I wrote a vocal piece. Um, yeah, I learned a lot from just composition tools, composition methods, how to get yourself out of a rut, and yeah, it was. I would say it's extremely helpful, and then meeting a lot of people as well, because I'm still friends with a lot of people that I met in universities.
Did they teach you about the business side of things and making a living doing it?
That's one thing that they didn't really do too much. Um, I did take a music business class, but it didn't really go too much into like how to market yourself and how to actually like make a living off of it. That was one thing I wish they would have taught us more of, and something I would have thought about more. Maybe I could have pitched it as like something that they could teach us during like a group composition lesson or something like that. So yeah, they didn't really teach us too much, sadly.
You mentioned LMMS. I was curious, are you actually using Linux at all?
No. Well, I am using Linux, but not for music. I just tinker around with it.
That's cool. I love Linux.
Uh,
I've been doing programming and stuff for a long time, and my other channel is about uh, development and stuff. So that's why I was curious. What do you use it for? Do you do any programming or what?
I like computers. Like, that was actually what I was going to get into. Before I decided to just ultimately go to music. Um, because programming's tough, and I didn't really have a good programming teacher in high school, so it was just like, I don't think it's a good fit for me. So I just decided go to music. But I do love computers a lot. Like, I love how they work. I know how they work. I don't really know programming too much. I can read programming, like I can understand it, sort of. But yeah, I just mess around. I just like computers, so I just tinker around with Linux, uh, just to see what it can run and stuff like that.
What about when it comes to the games? Are you in the game engine at all, helping with the implementation of the audio at all?
Um, I did experiment with Unreal Engine. I used Wise, and I implemented some like short like demo scenes. Like I did one. Um, it was like a racing game because at the time I was playing F Zero GX. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but I like on F Zero GX. Like once you cross the finish like the lap line for the final lap, the music changes, and it was cool. I was like, I want to try that. So I downloaded the Wise and I pretty much wrote a whole track uh, that I could test that on, and I wrote a little. Well, I did. I programmed. Wasn't really a program. I didn't really do anything. It was kind of like a test, a demo, the racing test. I think an Unreal Engine. Um, I did that, and I implemented the music, and yeah, that was one of my first tests. Then I did one where it was you were a guy running around, and if you like move to a certain radius of a enemy, like a boss, like a music would change to like a from like the field theme to like a battle theme and stuff like that.
Very cool. Do you do any sound effects too, or just the music?
Yeah, I did sound effects before. There was a time where I was learning it. I'm not do too much nowadays, but it's definitely something that like do if I'm like I don't know stuck with music. Like I'd usually just make sound effects. Because I do have like a ton of like sound designing tools, whatnot. Um, just a whole variety, whole library of stuff that I just like mess around with.
What kind of tools would you
Uh,
use?
so I use. I don't know if you're familiar with it. I don't think a lot of people are familiar with it, but there's this thing called Sugi. It's like a Japanese company. Yeah, like they make like procedural sounds, but you can like
How do you
alter
spell
it.
it?
It's TS. Ugi, Yasugi Studio, and they have a lot of cool stuff. It's pretty much it's based off of like procedural audio, and you can like draw in like an animation that will like play a sound effect. It's like a path. It's like a thing you can draw on, and you can make like different varieties of sound effects with it. And I did a lot with that, like when I was doing game jams. Like some game jams, I was the music person and the sound effects person, so like it really came in handy. Like when I had to do stuff with sound, and yeah, and then I have Kronos, Kronos Studio. I don't use it too much because it's like a subscription, and I hate subscriptions. But I got this cool, I think it was a Humble Bundle deal. It had like their whole fundamentals library, the sound library, and yeah, like it's real high quality stuff, and I like using it uh, just to mess around with, add sound effects, music, uh, various things.
Kronos is usually what comes to my mind. I wasn't familiar with Tsugi, but it looks like they have some really cool stuff. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, yeah, it's real cool. Yeah, I like it.
I'm sure you know with instruments, you've got to practice intentionally. Do you do anything like that with composing to like intentionally hone your craft?
Yeah, yeah, of course. Like, that's definitely like people always think composing is just like, oh, like you just sit down and like you just write something and it's better every time. I mean, it's like the same thing every time. But yeah, I always write, try to write every day, even if it's like a measure or even two measures. Like just try to do something. Like I just before I got on call with you, I just finished a little practice track. It's just 40 seconds. I was just testing libraries and whatnot, but also just testing, just playing around, messing around with like harmonies and melodies and whatnot.
Do you ever give yourself specific challenges or anything like that?
Um, Sometimes, not like all the time, but like I guess more so just like where is this gonna go and how am I gonna solve it? I guess it's some, more of like something like that.
Do you collaborate much with other people or do you tend to work by yourself?
I've been looking to collaborate with more people. I just finished a collaboration with a mellow guitarist for a track that I finished. I think it was called Blood Metal March. Um, yeah, he reached out to me because I finished that track, and I think I mentioned I use Shreddage by Impact Soundworks, and and guitarists like I don't know if you like know too many or if you're one, but like they love to be like, oh, I can play that, like like it's a guitar part, like that's not a real guitar. I can just lend some guitar, and he was real nice, and he I handed him some stems, and he recorded some guitar parts for it, and so yeah, I released it, and yeah, it was cool. It was cool to collaborate with someone.
I do play guitar myself, and I really love metal music too. And I actually listened and heard that track about an hour before we got on the call because you had just dropped it really recently, and it's epic. I really like that track.
Oh, thanks. Yeah,
Though I will say, Shreddage is a pretty good library. You know, it's true. You know, guitar is one that you can kind of tell when it's a fake or like a library rather than a real person. But
definitely. Yeah.
do you have a process that you tend to follow when it comes to writing songs?
I guess a process. I usually start with like the rhythm, like percussion first. Like to get something down. Sometimes I replace it in the end. Sometimes I don't. Uh, I start with Sometimes I start with melody. It kind of just depends on where I am. Like usually I found that like if I really am just stuck, I just start with like a pad, like a synth pad, and I just play that and just like solo over it or something like that. Um,
Is it always with a keyboard, or how do you approach that?
Yeah, I compose with the keyboard. I sadly can't really put a drum set in here, or I was gonna get a guitar, but I don't think I have enough room for that. but yeah, I just do everything with keyboard.
What kind of keyboard do you have?
A launch key, a Novation launch key Mark III 61 key.
Very nice. You mentioned Studio One. Is that what you're using now, or what do you like to use?
I use Cubase now.
Very nice. And you mentioned also Contact. Are there any other go-to libraries and plugins that you use?
Um, I love using Omnisphere by Spectrasonics. Trillion is a go-to. Pretty much all the Spectrasonics besides Keyscape, which I don't have, are my go-tos. Also, I just got Nexus by ReFX. That's my go-to for like modern sounds now. Uh, CRM2 just came out, and I was messing around with that, but I didn't put in my template yet because I gotta find a use for it. I mean, there's a lot of cool sounds in there, but it's kind of CPU heavy, and I don't really have too much to do with it now. Um, other go to I like Addictive Drums by XLN Audio. Uh, that's all I can think of now. That like I really you was it Yuhi synths. Uh, like their Hive synth I use a lot. Diva, I love that. Um, yeah, I think those are all the ones that come to mind.
Do you ever output sheet music, or are you typically just rendering the music?
I did study that in university. I don't do it too much, but I should definitely do more of it. Um, excuse me. Like transcribe, like you write the MIDI and transcribe it into like Dorico, because I use Dorico now. I used to use Finale, but it shut down, and also uh, it was just not fun to work with at all. So like for a long time, I was just like, I don't know where I'm. Like it was kind of like a gridlock. Like I don't want to use Finale, but I don't have Dorico, so it was just like I couldn't really do a lot. So kind of my notation stuff kind of stunted.
Even really experienced composers who do like TV and games and stuff, I've been told they don't really do a whole lot of sheet music. It's really only kind of at the highest levels are they actually paying orchestras to play.
Yeah, that's what I heard too. Like you're doing, especially like you said, like the higher levels, you're doing notation because like a lot of the time the budgets don't even allow for an orchestra. Like an orchestra costs a lot nowadays, and like what was it like? Yeah, like you're just gonna have to use sample libraries, like from like I heard like Spitfire, Cinematic Studio Strings, or like two of the biggest ones if you want to have like a string, like a realistic string sound. But yeah, I've been pretty much studying that for like ever since like 2019. Just like because I heard that pretty much, like you said, like once you won't be getting an orchestra hired, like you're gonna be really lucky if you get an orchestra at this time. The most you'll get is probably like a chamber, like a chamber string. But it's just what it is.
Do you have any advice on orchestration and the voice leading aspect?
Um, Usually less is more. If you add too much, it's going to get extremely messy to mix. And usually, if you orchestrate correctly, you wouldn't have to mix too much. Like like simple stuff. I was like, like classical orchestration, like doubling percussion with brass and strings. Uh, a common one would be like doubling the cello with the double bass, like by octaves, and like the like stuff like that, and like doubling like bassoon with cello, and Trying to think some more tips. Usually with chords, you don't need all the notes in a chord. I mean, you can, but like it would usually get kind of messy if you have all the notes at the same time. Like you can drop some notes and it'll still sound really good.
When you're coming up with chord progressions, are you like sitting there just thinking about the chord progressions like on paper, or are you playing it and kind of finding progressions that work well?
I'm finding progress. I'm just playing on the keyboard, finding whichever finds is just good. I mean, I do know, like I know, I think some of my colleagues they actually had to write like everything down. I find that kind of weird, but this is what they do. Um, yeah, I'm just jamming on the keyboard. Uh, like how I learned back then, I kind of still do today. I usually like listen to something, um, like a track that I like. I'm just playing along with the track. I'm just like seeing what they're doing, and then I'm like, oh, how can I, you know, make it my own, or do something different. Um, how can I use this in my own compositions and whatnot?
Do you use any interesting or exotic scales or a lot of chord extensions in what you do?
Yes, not. I mean, like I've been trying to do more, like extended like harmonies and whatnot. Um, yeah, I like using modes like modal scales like Dorian, uh, Mixolydian, stuff like that. I do like the pentatonic scales. What's cool is that like on scales, so in native instruments, uh, native instruments has like the Kodo. If you go like what was it East Asia, native instrument stuff, they have like scales and they give you like the names. And sometimes I just study them because it's like real interesting to see what scales they have because the scales are like I never heard of. And it's just like in this day and age, like there's so many there's a lot of like like Greek scales and whatnot, but it's just like there's so many other musical cultures with like different scales, and they all have different flavors. And it's yeah, I sometimes like mess around with those. I play with scales that I see in like in native instruments, and just like mess around, just practice with them, and see what we can come up with. Because there's some cool things you can come up with.
Any advice for somebody who's just starting out and just learning?
Just keep writing, and keep just be friendly and keep talking to people because you never know where your connections and your friends are going to take you. And don't buy too much in the beginning.
That's great advice.
Yeah. Look into Reaper if you can. It's extremely cheap, and honestly, if you learn Reaper, you'll be set for like a really long time. Like just buckle down and learn Reaper, and you'll save a lot of money in the long run.
Well, last question before we go. Is there anything else you want to plug or share?
Um, Nothing really. I mean, I guess follow me on Twitter. It's SJ Compose on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. I'm Blue Sky as well under the same SJ Compose, the Blue Sky handle. Um, yeah, and I have a card link so you can see all my socials and whatnot. And if you want to talk, then I'm always down to chat because I'm a big nerd when it comes to game music and whatnot. I love talking about it. So yeah, I'm always open.
All right. Well, Stephen, thanks for the time, man. It was great talking with you, and I wish you the best of luck.
All right, thank you so much. It was a pleasure.